going live now into the Facebook group.
Oh, cool. It popped up, a little message popped up.
Oh, good.
Yeah,
Good.
It says meeting is now streaming live on Facebook. So there you go.
Good. So everything's working.
Yeah,
so,
well done.
Welcome, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today. I'm just going to share a little bit of information about Barbara before I welcome her. I'm so excited to be able to share Barbara with you today because she's a beautiful woman with lots of experience and so caring and so helpful. She's been very, very helpful to me, and I know that you'll find her very helpful to you as well. So Barbara assists busy working women to minimise stress and maximise time. She's spent over 20 years working in stressful and time-precious industries such as film, hospitality and marketing, while also juggling responsibilities of managing her family, business and career development. She's a personal coach, educator, columnist and enrichment speaker for P&O Cruises. She lives in the desert of Alice Springs, Australia, working with people around the country. Her professional experience has included contracts with small business, not-for-profits, Aboriginal organisations, media, marketing, aged care, universities, health services and cruise ships. So exciting and so much experience. Barbara, can you please share your story of how you ended up talking about time and time management?
So I worked in, as my brief said, I've worked in the film industry for over 20 years. And I got to a point in my life where things just changed. I did a lot of personal growth, a lot of personal development, went through a bit of trauma and crisis. And maybe it's a midlife crisis, but it's like, who am I? What am I passionate about? And what's at the core of who I am? And I started with some of the seminars that I was going to. It would be about building a business around what you're passionate about, what your strengths are, what's at the core of who you are. And I knew that filmmaking wasn't me anymore. I knew I wasn't that person anymore. But then it was, well, who am I?
Yeah.
Who am I? And I did some testing, some values testing. And it really surprised me that the common thread that was there was about making sense of things, of creating order out of chaos, of being organized, of getting things done, of doing the nitty-gritty. And when something's innately part of you, you just dismiss it. And unfortunately, that's where our superpower is. That's where our gifts are. That's where, but because it's innately who we are, we just go, oh, that's, that's nothing.
Yeah.
And so I decided to really focus my attention on that and go, where can I really help people? Because I love this stuff. I love it. And I know it so well. So how can I share that knowledge with other people to make their life less stressed and more efficient and more productive? So that's where it came from. And I've just refined that over the years to specialize in certain areas.
That is fantastic. I think that's one of the best superpowers you could possibly have, because most people would say that it's their weakness. Most people would say that they procrastinate, they know what they should do, but they just can't get on with it and get it done. And, a lot of people used to ask me that as well, but I probably, in the past, the old me took it to the extreme, and I don't know if this ever happened to you, is because I was so good at getting things done that I just kept taking on more and more and more until in the end I was actually doing too much and I was overwhelmed and burnt out. I was the frog in the pot, boiling away, and I didn't even know. Did any of that help with your sort of coming to the point of what am I doing, who am I?
Yeah, look, I think it's a big trap for anyone. They say if you want to get something done, give it to a busy person, So, and in the context of stress management, I say to people that I'm a stress addict. Like, I actually love the I love being under the pump. I love the adrenaline. I love the go, 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 go. And that's why I do things like public speaking and all of that, because it's putting me out into a stress state and I love it. And so, yeah, that's the trap, is to keep saying yes. And when I'm coaching people, it's not uncommon for the people that I'm coaching to be over carers. And I know that that's what you specialize in, is that over pleasing. And it's about wanting to do do everything perfect, be the best for everybody and be everything to everyone, which is exhausting, which is absolutely exhausting. And it comes down to, what are the things that you'll let go through to the wicket keeper, which is a very Australian cricket term. It's like, which if you're juggling all the balls, which one are you okay with dropping on the ground? And it's okay to let some of them drop on the ground. What are the things you say no to? One of my favorite sayings is, the power of your yes comes down to how well you can say no. Your yes becomes so much stronger, that you become a more reliable person, a better person at what you do, by getting good at saying no and being clear about what you're going to say no to.
It's so true, because I found that when I was a serial people pleaser, that the yes was out of my mouth before I'd even understood the question. I actually sometimes didn't know what I was saying yes to. And I later discovered that the underlying subconscious belief system that caused that was, people like me if I say yes. So I was yes, yes, yes. And then later I was like, what have I got myself in for? And then I felt like I couldn't turn around and say no. And one of the things that I talk to my clients about is buying some time. Like, in the moment, first of all, if you don't really understand what you're being asked to do, ask enough questions to actually understand what it is. And if you can't make a decision on the spot, there is no pressure for you to do that. Buy yourself some time and say, can I have some time to think about that, and I'll get back to you. And in that time, I think if you can weigh up, like you did with your values, when you really looked at your values and understood what you were naturally good at and what's important to you, if I'm deciding now whether to say yes to something, I tune in and see how it feels. So I've learned to become very emotional based instead of being so much in my head all the time. But from a practical point of view, I'll go, what has this got to do with my mission at the moment? Like, what's important to me? And that would have felt selfish to me before, because I would have felt like, well, I should just put everybody else first. And if this is important to them, then I should do it. But I guess I've learnt that if it's important to me as well as being important to them, then it's going to be better for everyone.
It builds momentum. If everybody's excited and passionate about something, which comes from following what's at your heart's desire, then it's like with that, again, another saying, a rolling stone gathers no moss. Like, it just starts rolling. It's really interesting. I love what you're saying, because when I'm working with people, typically they come to me and I'm putting out the fires straight away. What's causing the most stress? What's causing the most anxiety? And then we start to look at the preventative stuff, and it all comes down to purpose, vision, and mission. And what's really interesting, it's a little bit scary, but what's really interesting, when I really dig deep with people on that stuff, they end up closing their business, changing their job, because it gets to a point where they go, I can't live this anymore because it's not me. This is just not me. And the decision becomes so easy. And then that think that the stress and the pain dissipates, because it's fighting against something that's not innately you, but you've said yes to it, and you've got to follow it through. You've got to commit to it. And that's why it just self-perpetuating, because you procrastinate because it's not in your heart's desire. You put it off, you don't achieve the goals, you underperform, beat yourself up about it, not disciplined enough. And then so it makes it pretty hard.
Yeah, you're trying to be disciplined about something that deep in your heart you don't even want to do. And sometimes you said yes to it so long ago, you have changed so much since then, that you keep doing something just because you did it so long ago and it's not for you anymore.
That is such a good point. And it's, again, I've coached people that have gone, but I've committed my life to this, so I need to see it through. Like me with the film industry, I had already, by the time I quit, I'd been working in that industry for 20 years. I started when I was 14. My family had funded me and supported me. I'd fought really hard, unbelievable odds to get into film school, to get my films into film festivals, to put myself on a pedestal of this career. And then it was a really tough decision to go, it's not me anymore. It's
Yeah.
not me, to turn my back on that, on what I started to do. And it came from, and I know we've had this conversation of being a people pleaser. The whole desire was this emptiness inside myself of, if the world loves me, then I'm worthy of being loved.
Yeah.
So I'm going to put myself out in an industry where it's all about applause, ego, recognition. Bravo, well done,
Yeah,
well done. You're the best. Oh my God, you're famous. Wow.
Yeah, and then you can feel really good about yourself because you think everyone else does. I know, and I love what you said about, you know, your parents helping you get there. When I sold my physiotherapy company to Open Soul Pleaser, my dad, who left school at year 10, was very proud of me for getting into physiotherapy, which was very competitive, and being, you know, smart enough to be able to do that and work really hard and then have my own successful business. And I loved it all the way through. And I never stopped loving it, but I had this pull to have these conversations that were about spirituality and energy. And it just wasn't the place in my physiotherapy business. You know, I had just grown to another level where I couldn't do and say what I wanted to where I was. And the beautiful thing about the transition I was able to make is I sold it to a girl in my business around the age I was when I started it. I felt like it was my baby. And then I handed it over to someone who has grown it to the next level, still with that passion that I had back when I started it. And I think that we need to let go of the idea that it's somehow wrong to change in a different direction and not to stay committed to the same thing.
I think we all, change is never comfortable, and so that's why we put it off. But that's where the opportunity is, and it's in pushing yourself that's where the muscles grow. I mean, that's what we do when we go to the gym, is making those little tears that heal themselves, which build muscle. So to put yourself, to make change does quite require a little bit of bravery. I know with my son too, it's who's in year 12, and he's, oh, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? And I've said, just start the journey. It doesn't have to be the destination. Just start it and see where it takes you. And the learning is in those mistakes. Again, this is a thing in terms of time management. People sometimes, depending on the personality trait, people will put off doing things because it's not perfect.
Yeah.
This, perhaps if I'm going, because it's drilled into us as kids, a job worth doing is worth doing well. A job worth doing is worth doing well. So if I can't do it well, it's not worth doing it. If it's not perfect, it's not worth doing it. So my coach, when I was being coached by the Stress Management Institute, he said he used to drum into his clients. He had a chiropractic, started out in chiropractic, not dissimilar industry to you.
Yeah.
And he was seeing the side effects of people being stressed. And he would drill into them, a job worth doing is worth doing lousy. There's benefit in doing a bad job of something, because at least you've done it and at least you can learn from that. I get clients that get bogged down in the perfectionism, which just every little thing has to be perfect, which means that the really important things are then rushed because too much time's been spent on all these other little things. And so I've had to say to them, let that be, what thing can be a lousy job? What thing can be done really badly? Done is sometimes better than perfect. Just get these things done so you can really shine in this area that's really important, where your strength is.
Yeah, that's so true. And I love what you said about the advice that you gave to your son, because some of my clients, they come to me because they want to find their purpose, but they think that the purpose is going to come to them with the entire roadmap from here to there. And what I explain to them is that it comes one step at a time. Like, the inspiration that you'll get is ring this person, go there, or open this website, or look at this newspaper, and there will be the thing. And that will be one step towards your thing that you're going to do. You don't have to know the end of the journey if you can just trust yourself. And I think that's what's missing too, is all the influence around us is that we're doing things because we think we should, because our parents did it, because our husband does it, because someone else wants me to do it, because people will love me if I do it, rather than what's in my heart, even if it's a little bit crazy. When I started the Soul Pleaser business, there were people making fun of me. They knew me as a scientific, professional physiotherapist, and they're like, she'd lost her mind. And so you have to have a lot of self-trust to actually follow your heart. and just take one step towards it and trust that the other steps will show up.
And I love what you say about that, because again, in the context of time management and stress management, I talk about beating your drum to somebody else's tune. So it's everybody else telling you what you should be doing, whether it's your career or whether it's a process of doing something. And so you force yourself to do it, but it's hard work and it's not being done efficiently. For example, I'll have people that go, oh, I should be using digital tools, I should be having a digital calendar, but I just hate being in front of the computer. Now, I love digital tools, that's my thing, but I would never force my clients. And so some still just feel really comfortable with a paper diary. And I'd be really interested in the comments to see who still has a paper diary and who has a digital one. What do you have, Tracy? Do you have a paper diary still?
Well, about 5 or 6 years ago, when I crossed over from a paper diary to a digital one, I had both, which was just a nightmare. It was really stupid.
I remember that period of time.
I couldn't let go of the paper diary, and now I'm so happy not to have one. And the latest step that I've taken is I've got a bookshelf full of notebooks, because when I'm talking to a client, I love to handwrite. So I've moved on to the Remarkable, where I can still handwrite, and you know, it feels like I'm writing in a notebook, but I don't have hundreds of notebooks now because it's all electronically saved. But I'd love you to share in the chat box whether you prefer a paper diary or whether you digital, because I agree. I think we need to just do what is easiest for us rather than adding more hurdles by doing something that we struggle with and we don't enjoy.
Yeah, it's about working to your strengths, working with your strengths and your weaknesses. And what I find really interesting is that whatever your superpower is, like whatever it is that you're really good at, is also your kryptonite. Like the story of Superman, he comes from this planet where he's like everybody else, but when he gets to Earth, he has superpowers. And from his planet is this thing called kryptonite. And it diminishes, it takes him back to being a normal person. It diminishes all his powers. So for each of us, with our own superpower, it also becomes our weakness. So for me, it's about the detail, doing things and getting things organized. So I can get really distracted with that. Rather than getting on the phone and ringing people, I go, wait, I'll just color code it and alphabetize it and put it into categories, and then I'll make some phone calls.
Yeah.
That it becomes a distraction.
Yeah, because you love it and then you overdo it.
Yes.
So we've got one of everything in the chat box. Gary is digital and Sonia's a bit of both, and Leanne likes paper. So that covers everything.
There you go. Yeah.
So Barbara, this is the big question on everybody's lips. How do we stop procrastinating?
So it ties into what we've been talking about. There's a few things that you can do once you identify what's at the core of who you are, what the things that you place value on, the things that are important to you, what's innately you and your personality style. As I said before, that's the distraction. So procrastination, everybody thinks procrastination is about discipline, just being disciplined and doing it. But the truth of the matter is, procrastination is about choosing to do something else that's far more pleasurable, choosing to do the thing that gives us a sense of reward or satisfaction. So if we're working from home, for example, it could be going and doing the laundry or doing the dishes. Now, that's not an enjoyable task, but it's comfortable, it's known, it's clear. It's like, yes, I'm doing something that needs to be done and I've got it completed. When you're supposed to be doing a proposal that's due in a couple of hours, but you've done the dishes and you've done the laundry. So it's choosing to do something else that gives us pleasure and reward. So the key here is there's one thing that you can do is find the pleasure and reward in the thing that you're doing that you don't like. How does it tie into your value? How does it connect to that thing that gives you great reward and pleasure, or that aligns with who you are? How can you create that connection to it somehow? And if you absolutely can't, then you commit to a period of time doing that horrible thing. And I normally say 20 minutes to my clients. Give it 20 minutes, and at the end of that, you're going to do something that absolutely pleasures you, because it's the carrot in front of the donkey. And if anyone wants to Google it, there's a great time management technique called the Pomodoro technique. And it's about working to 20 to 40 minutes, then having a break and setting a timer, because research has shown that our brain functions best for about 40 minutes and then it starts to slow down. So if you give it a rest, it'll fire back up again. So doing that horrible thing for 20 minutes, giving yourself a little bit of a pump of the pleasure, and then doing another 20 minutes again will help you get through that difficult thing. And the other thing that causes us to procrastinate is when we're putting a big mountain on our task list. Must climb Everest. Oh yeah, I'll get around to that tomorrow. Must climb Everest. Oh, I'll do that tomorrow. So the best thing you can do, another saying that I love, is that you eat an elephant one mouthful at a time. If I sit down and eat a meal the size of an elephant, I'll just look at it and go, no way. But if I have a mouthful periodically, then I can eat it. And so sometimes these things that we're putting off are an elephant, they're a mountain, and you need to really break it down, especially if you don't like it. Break it down into bite-sized chunks. And I say to people, the very first mouthful, all you have to do is the plan of what are the mouthfuls. That's it. That's all you have to commit to. And then it's easier to digest.
Yeah, I love that. That's great advice. This will be recorded for those of you who are driving and can't take notes, because it is worthwhile writing these things down. I love how you talked about changing your perception and seeing whether there is a way to love the thing that you feel like you don't want to do. Back when I had my physiotherapy company, our business was about going into the workplace, and one of the services we provided was there would be an injured worker. We would assess them and then give them advice about how they could safely return to work. And the thing that I would put off is the report. And so I'd come home from work, I'd do all the kids thing, and when they were finally in bed, I'd sit down at 8:30 at night and spend 2 hours writing these really long reports. And by then I was tired and I was resenting it and I hated it. And so I did a practical thing, and then I did a mind thing as well. And the practical thing was getting a dictaphone and allowing time as soon as I came out of the appointment to dictaphone the report straight away while it was fresh in my mind. And it was a much better report, and I was really enthusiastic, and someone else who's better at typing than me could do it. But the other thing I decided, because obviously I had to edit the reports later, was that I loved the outcome that the client got when they were able to return to work because of my report. And so I just had to give it more meaning, because it felt meaningless to me because it was paperwork, and I just loved the face-to-face stuff. So, you know, there are ways around it when you change your perception about something.
Yeah, I can remember when I first started hearing about this value stuff was by a man called Dr. John DeMartini, and he told this story about this kid who had the capability to perform really well in school, but he was just addicted to gaming. And he did some work with him and had a conversation with him and showed him how maths could actually benefit and improve his performance in gaming. If he got better at maths, could he see how it would improve his performance in gaming? And so suddenly he was more interested and invested in understanding and learning maths because he could see the practical application. Here in Central Australia, another story of a teacher who was trying to teach kids maths, Aboriginal kids in a classroom. Can you imagine? It's like, how does this relate to me? So he took them out onto the football field. And as we know, football is huge in Aboriginal community. And so he taught them about angles with kicking the football and how the kicking the ball at certain angles was what that meant, and taught them that process of maths out on the football field. So it was applying something that they had value to the thing that they really hated. And we can all do that. We can all find, exactly like you did, you pictured in your mind the outcome for your client and embodied that as you were writing your report so that it became more rewarding for you.
Yeah. So that awareness of ourselves is really important. So we know what makes us light up so that we can bring that into the task. So what are better ways to prioritize?
So one of my, and everybody can look this up, there's a great technique called the Eisenhower technique, or it's called Quadrant planning. It was in Stephen Covey's book, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. The thing that we need to do when we're prioritizing is getting clear about which things are urgent and which things are important. And there's a difference. There is a difference. To give you an example, something that's urgent but not important are things that are important to somebody else. They need to be done now, but they're not necessarily important to us. So things like answering the telephone. If my phone rings now, it needs to be answered in some capacity, but I don't have to answer it. So I've got a message bank, autoresponders on your emails. It's about getting somebody else to do that thing that's really timely, having with our email systems and our CRMs, responding to people in a timely manner, paying a bill, those kind of things. The key is to outsource or automate with those things, anything that is urgent but not necessarily important to us. The biggest trap that people fall into with time management in terms of prioritizing things, of course, there's the things that are urgent and important. You need to do them now. They're crisis, they're deadlines. The biggest trap that I see in terms of time management and prioritization is the things that are important, really, really important, but they're not urgent yet. So we go, I know that's coming. I know I have to do that, but I've got plenty of time. I've got plenty of time. I'll get that done. I've got plenty of time. I'll fit it in and around everything that I'm doing. But of course, our diaries and our calendars get full and we never do it. And then it's the night before and we're going, I've got to put that proposal in. It's my mum's birthday and I haven't got her a present. I haven't organized anything. So the sort of things that fit in that criteria are the things that are about relationships, proposals, applications, all of those things that need your time, but they're not urgent right now. And so you put them off. And the key to this is blocking out times in your calendar for it, whether it's a paper or a digital one, is going, I'm going to make some time for this. And you can move it if you need to, but it's a conscious contract that you're making, going, this time is for this. And that means that when you're filling your diary, you're filling it around that. You're making space for it. You're making time for it. And if you do move it or delete it, you're very conscious then you're doing it, rather than this thing back here somewhere in the back of your mind. Yeah, I must do that thing. It's coming up. You're actually blocking out some time for it. So that's the fundamental important thing to do when you're prioritizing, is to allow time for those things that are coming down the conveyor belt.
And there's just so much relief in scheduling it because you can stop thinking about it. So even when you're putting it off, it's just weighing you down because it's in the back of your mind.
Yes.
You know it needs to be done. So I'm forever putting things that are swimming around in my calendar down the track so that I can just forget about it until that day comes.
That is such a good point. And one of the gurus of time management, there's a man by the name of David Allen who wrote a book called Getting Things Done. Brilliant. And the brilliance in it is the simplicity. It is so simple. The methodology is so simple. And his philosophy is that we need a time and a place for everything. So you put things somewhere that will come to you at just the right time, which is exactly what you're talking about with your diary. I'll put it there so I don't have to think about it. And my goal when I'm working with people is to release stuff from their memory as much as possible, because this is a computer and our RAM gets filled with, got to remember to do this, got to do that. Oh, I've got to do this. Oh shit, I'm going to do that. And I'm going to remember to make up that on the way home. So creating a system and trusting the system to give you things at the right time so that you can really work on what you need to work on and be really good at that and really powerful, passionate, motivated, on point, rather than, oh, so much to do and you're going to remember it all.
Yeah, and it just drains you. I love that analogy. I've got a computer guy, calls himself some sort of geek or something, coming on Friday because I think I've done that to my computer. I've just filled it up with too much stuff. So I'm going to get him to get rid of some stuff. And Barbara, last question, how do we stay focused?
I think one of the most important things is to, regardless of whether you're in business or you work for somebody or if it's just for yourself, where can I get the biggest result for the least amount of effort? So where am I getting something that's rewarding, that's not taxing me? And that can be money, it can be time, it can be emotional, spiritual energy, physical energy. What is it that gives me the biggest reward for the least amount of effort? And at the end of the day, that's where you have to focus on your attention. Was it worth it? Was all that effort worth it? What was the outcome? And it's the, what's that minimalist lady, Mary Kondo, or do you know, remember her?
No, no, I don't know her name.
Some people will know who I'm talking about. And it's about reducing things and does this bring me joy? And it's the same in the context of what we're doing is, in the big picture, is this actually worthwhile? A coach once said to me, for every hour that you spend, ask yourself, how much money did that hour of work make me? But it doesn't have to be as ruthless and business and money driven as that. It can be, how much did it reward me? And so once again, I do mindfulness and mapping techniques to go, are you doing something that's a lot of effort for little reward? Why? Why are you doing that? And quite often, that one in particular is somebody else. Somebody else has told me this is a good idea. Somebody else told me I should be doing this. Or it's an outdated system. You know, it's an old way of doing something or an old way of thinking about something, and you just become habitual with it. So yeah, it's about where's the biggest return on my investment of energy, time, or money.
Yeah, yeah. In my book, and I'll get you to mention yours in a minute as well, Find the Real You and Love Her so you can live the life you choose. I have a technique in there which is like a detox, or it's like a wardrobe clean out, but you do it with your life. And you just write down all the things that you're doing, and then you ask yourself, why am I doing it? And then you ask yourself, do I want to keep doing it or not? Or do I want to modify it in some way?
Love it.
And when I did that 5 years ago, all of a sudden I freed up so much space. And that really allowed the inspiration for Soul Please to come in, because there wasn't space for inspiration. I was so full of so many different things that I was doing. And I think if you can streamline your focus, even if it can be divided between different entities. So for example, I have Soul Pleaser, I coach at Farm Owners Academy, I look after some one-on-one clients. So there's a few different ways that I do it, but my primary focus is to help people to realize their full potential. So if you can sort of get this idea of what your reason is behind things, the why, then your focus, even if it's across different things, and children, you know, obviously I'm a parent and a wife as well. It's just, what is this about? And for me now, like you've touched on, it's about joy. That is my priority, is to feel joyful. And if I get into the state of joy before I tackle any task, I enjoy the task rather than expecting the task to bring me the joy. I do it the other way around.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. So be, again, like Gandhi says, be the change you want to see in the world. Be the thing, be joyous so that you bring that into your world. And I also say to people, it's not a big component of what I do in my coaching, but it's a philosophy I live by, is, does it serve me? Whether it's an item of clothing, whether it's a job, whether it's a friendship, whether it's, does it actually serve me, this thing? And if I let it go, how easy is it to replace it? Because now so much of what's in our world is easy to find. Google anything, clothing, we can go into op shops and find what we need now because there's so much stuff. This fear of hanging on to things and keeping it close, and actually go, when was the last time I used this thing? Why am I hanging on to it? Why do I have this friendship when all it does is drain me? Oh, and it's not rewarding. Why do I hang on to this?
Yeah, it's a great thing to do. So I'd love to open it up to questions now. If anybody has a question for Barbara, please type it in the chat box. And you can also unmute yourself and just ask Barbara yourself if you like, completely up to you. If you're on Facebook, you can type the question underneath where you can see the video in Facebook. So I'll just have a look there to see if any are coming through. But in the meantime, while we're waiting to see if there are any questions coming through, Barbara, would you like to share the wonderful, generous free gift that you have for our listeners today?
So I have a book that's called 101 Time-Saving Tips for Busy Working Women. I know there's a couple of men listening here, and so there's no reason fellas, why you can't read this book as well. But what I did was I went into a whole range of different Facebook groups and said to all these women, what's your biggest time-saving tip? I'm putting together a collection of tips. So it's a really easy read. It's not like it's heavy going, and it's divided up into categories. So just lots of little tips and tricks that people have shared that have been lifesavers for them, changing their habits, changing the way they do things. So I put together 101 different tips that you can read through. Some will be useful, some not so useful. So
yeah, that's fantastic. I love the style of the way you've done that, because with my coaching program, all of the women are in a group called Unlimited Joy, and they learn as much from me as they do from everybody else, the other way around. So it's just, we learn so much from other people. And so I just love that, because we all have slightly different ideas. So if you can tap into other people's inspiration, it's perfect.
And this is the thing too, my idea of how something works really well could be completely different. So even some of the tips that were in there, I thought, not for me, but it would be for somebody else.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So Leanne has said, that's my problem, is hanging on to things and feeling overwhelmed on where to start. What would you say to Leanne, Barbara?
So the best thing that I can do in terms of when there's overwhelm, it's often because it comes from not having clarity. It's not being clear. So number one is, like I said before, is with the elephant, is breaking it down into smaller chunks. Number two is, what's going to give me the biggest reward? What's going to give me the biggest result for the least amount of effort? I would be looking at what things, it sounds terrible, but what are the things that I can put off? What are the things that I can push back and make time in my diary for? And what are the things I absolutely need to do today? And my advice, to keep it simple, because obviously to try and give you simple advice now, the best advice that time management experts have given me around overcoming that sense of overwhelm is picking 3 things to do in the day. Just focusing on the 3 top things you need to do, not a list of 15 to 20 things, because research has shown that when you achieve goals, when you kick goals, you become more motivated and more productive. Tracy, that's that joy that you're talking about. There's a little boost of reward. As opposed to, can you imagine when you get to the end of the day going, oh, I had 10 things on my list and I only did 5. Oh my God, and I've still got another 5 things to do. So you focus on 3. When you knock over those 3 by lunchtime, pick another 3, and you will get, you see, you're doing 6 rather than, oh, I've only done 5.
Yeah.
It's so much more productive and rewarding, and it'll pull you through the day and keep you on track rather than, so just focus on 3 each day and write them down in front of you.
Yeah, great advice. Keep it very, very simple. So spot on. Thanks, Leanne said. Just what she needed to hear. So Barbara, where can people find you?
So you can find me, I'm on most of the social medias. Time Tamer is typically my handle, and timetamer.com.au is my website. So you're welcome. You can connect with me on Facebook, either through my page or personally. I don't mind connecting with people if they want to friend me on Facebook. LinkedIn, you're welcome to connect with me, whichever suits, wherever you'd like to connect with me.
Fantastic. So for those of you who are watching now, or if you're watching the recording, what we'll do is we will post those links for you underneath the recording in the Soul Pleaser group, so that you can find Barbara and follow her and read her fantastic book, and ask her any questions that you might have. So thank you everyone who's turned up live. Great to have you here, and I hope it's been helpful. And thank you, Barbara. You're a wonderful woman. I love spending time with you, and you have so much knowledge and experience, and you make it look very easy.
It's always a work in practice. Like I say to people, I'm time poor and stressed, so I can share with people how to do it.
That's right. We're always speaking from experience. That's why we know so much about it.
Yeah.
I love it. Thanks so much, Barbara. Thanks for being here today.
My pleasure.
See you later.
Bye.
Bye.